Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Franklin University, Course 1, Franklin 101. I am your host, Young Ben Franklin. Now, if you have any questions about who I am or what I'm doing here, I do think that you should go back to episode 1 and then watch episode 2 and then the next episode, and then you're up to date right here. Also, if you can, please support this project by donating at the website www.franklinforprez.com. I'm working on a very limited budget, as in like zero, and I would love to be able to raise money so I can animate the whole project. Think of it like as a Schoolhouse Rock, but for new generation. But with that, I do hope you enjoy the show. Welcome to Lesson 2, Young Prodigy. Now, this specifically focuses on my childhood and my youth. And like I said in the last lesson, I did an amazing job marketing my image with the American image and creating that American spirit to the world. Like, I really did an amazing job with it. I do kind of wish I did a better job of, choosing the right image for me. I was hoping to be remembered more as like my young and athletic years, kind of like a poor man's Captain America.
Yeah, instead you look like the Burger King.
Oh, because you're such a little dapper Dan? The best you could do is get Paul Giamatti to pretty you up, and that dude played an orangutan. You're just a walking, talking pug in a suit, and you yap like one to boot.
Who do you think you're talking to? I have more brains than you ever will. If I could get out
you
there
want
right
to do
now,
this?
I would
Really?
show
You want to do this little
do.
fiddle? I'm going to cut your strings off, and I'm going to mute you.
Who do you think you are?
Oh,
I'm gonna
you can take me on?
right now.
Oh, come on. Get a little step stool, little man. Get a step stool. What do you...
As we begin our story, the first thing is to forget everything you think you know about me. Forget the stale image you have of me. Understand, my amazing exploits began at a very young age. I mean, this is why I'm great. I just have to say, I wasn't old, bald, and fat always. See, back in the day, I was real athletic, a chalk white ginger. Yep, I was red-headed. I'd fight the apprentices of other tradesmen and knock them when they're down on the ground as an exclamation point. See this boy, young Ben, such a prodigy, top-notch scholarly. Gosh, Pop's proud of me. Skipping grades quick, I put a clinic on these fools. I'm so hot, get me to the pool. I learned how to swim, taught the styles to myself. Hell, I invented swimming flippers when I was 12 straight. Facts, I saw ducks paddling with webbed feet. Made wooden paddles for my hands. Neat technique, simple thing. My design so plain, yet I'm in the International Swimming Hall of Fame. Dang. And that's why I'm great. Well, at least one way.
And that concludes our budget for animation. If you really enjoyed it, and you want to see more of it, then please consider donating to me, because otherwise we're now going to be taking this and going like a poor man's Ken Burns. Anyways, a lot of people tend to forget about my roots, like where I'm actually from, because my face and my name is everywhere in Philadelphia. People just kind of assume that I'm from Philadelphia, except if you're from Boston. Like, people in Boston will tell everybody who's from Boston, and that includes me. So yes, I am in fact born in Boston. Let's do a quick rundown about Boston, because I think that one of the big things is you guys got to take out whatever you think you know about Boston. Like, you have to drop all the stereotypes you have about Boston. Seriously, like, if my parents found out that Irish Catholics were like roaming around Boston, they'd be rolling over in their graves.
And those accents. Gross.
That I agree with. The sense of community and collectivist spirit was strong in Boston. Now, I'll dive deeper into Boston's political structure in the next class, Franklin 300. But right now, just know that there are excellent political features which influenced my own strong sense of a collective democratic institution. However, while it was developing characteristics of a cosmopolitan, it still maintained a theocratic structure. The church and its officials had massive influence in the region. It was a town established by Puritans 80 years prior, and so it had 3 generations of that religion entrenched in the community. Now, as what tends to happen, the older generation of Puritans were getting increasingly concerned over the level of commitment of the younger generations, and in the process, needless to say, they started getting desperate with how they tried to hold on to power and maintain the old ways. And it just really quickened their decline. And I was born right in this tense era, 1706. It's 14 years after the Salem witch trials. Are you familiar? Basically, neighbors got into fights over border disputes, and a gust of wind came by, and the neighbor got a chill and said, "Oh, you put a spell on me or you're a witch." And the neighbor would say, "No, I'm not." And the response was, "That's what a witch would say." And the only way you could protect yourself is admit you were bewitched and blame someone else for bewitching you. So you can guess what happened. Amongst these good Puritan neighbors, 22 people were executed, or as I would like to say, murdered during this hysteria.
It wasn't a great look.
You think? So anyone who tried to call this ridiculous was called a witch, because you don't question the church. The church doesn't lie after all. Several years later, though, several of the judges and ministers would actually repent and apologize for being involved in this hysteria, but the damage was done. You had a whole new generation of young Bostonians who just didn't trust the church. They just seemed like yet another corrupt institution. They were supposed to be different. In the end, they were just about the same. This would lead to a head-to-head battle with my brother James. But we're going to talk about that next week. So let's move on. Let's talk about me. So I was a brilliant kid. Like, this was called Young Prodigy because I was a brilliant kid. But as a kid, nonetheless, I loved to read. I wanted to be big. But I was 15th of 17 children. That's right, 17 children. I can't really think of a good sex joke right here, so I'm just going to pause to let you come up with one. We good? Great. So my parents came from hardy stock. And like I said, I wanted to be big. But it's hard to be big when you're the 15th of 17 children. My dad, Josiah, couldn't send me to Harvard. And frankly, thank God I didn't go, because I would not have been the same person.
Excuse me, sir. What's your problem with Harvard?
Where do I begin? They're elitist. They're exclusive. They enable those who actually attended to believe that they're better than everyone else, and therefore they think that they should rule everybody else. Thank God my school, Penn, isn't like that. But on top of it all, they spend way too much on education that really isn't practical to everyday living. Like, they would basically sit there and have you translate Greek, Hebrew texts into Latin and then into English. And it's like, what is that going to do in a normal, daily life? That doesn't help you at all. It's interesting.
I'll have
It's
you
a
know,
waste of
sir, it's
time.
an excellent institution and does an excellent job training its students for legal careers.
Sure, if you like lawyers. There's also a bunch of rich kids who go there and get drunk for their entire time while getting free tuition based off daddy's dollars. And then they're still guaranteed a job afterwards, even though they've done nothing because of the status that they've already had. Some things just don't change. I'm not bitter. I mean, I was back then. I kind of wanted to go to Harvard. It was elitist, and I thought that I should be there. But in the end, I'd say I did pretty well for myself not going to Harvard. Anyway, my father sent me to be apprenticed to my brother James, and it was perfect for me. The printing trade, oh my God, let me tell you about it. The printing trade requires both blue collar and white collar skills. It's awesome. Imagine having to write 2,000 word essays with Scrabble pieces that are backwards. It takes time. 16-hour days, 6 days a week. Time is money. Everything we do has to be able to sell, which would lead James down a road that reshaped democracy in the colonies. Again, more on that next week. The best part of the print shop was the access to books I got. My apprenticeship basically became my high school career. With the amount of books that I had access to, thanks to James's little library, it changed everything. I was able to all of a sudden access classical writings like Cicero, Aristotle, Socrates, Plato. And then also I was able to read the great Enlightenment thinkers of Locke, Hobbes, Addison, Steele, Pope, Swift, who basically applied the classical writings and included scientific discovery. Like, the age of reason was huge. Reason and logic guided me. I was significantly impacted by this. And there was, all these little things that stood out that I would apply to the rest of my life. So Aristotle's deductive reasoning specifically, his syllogisms enabled me and everybody around me to come up with basic assumptions. Syllogisms were little formulas. They're like, if A equals C and B equals C, then A equals B. Or if Ben Franklin is human and humans are mortal, then therefore Ben Franklin is mortal. Or If everyone eats food, and food makes you fart, therefore...
Good God, man.
What, you gonna act like you don't fart?
I don't speak about it.
That's funny, because every time you speak, you sound like a butt. Anyway, syllogisms. They can be great for developing theories, but assumptions can only go so far. You know what happens if you assume too much? John, tell him. If you assume too much, you make
An ass out of you
mistakes. Assumptions can be problematic. Deductive reasoning wasn't enough. Assumptions needed to be tested. And Sir Francis Bacon had an answer for this. To counter Aristotle's deductive reasoning, Bacon pioneered inductive reasoning, or testing out a hypothesis. It introduced me to a new step-by-step process called the scientific method to prove an idea. Reason creates order within chaos. Everything has a formula to its inner workings. Society, science, human nature. I loved formulas. I used formulas for everything I did in order to succeed in life. My entire life is a series of step-by-step formulas, and I'm going to be showing some of you that later on. I mean, take my writing technique. I would read every essay of the Enlightenment, all the papers, all the writings, and I taught myself how to write by looking at them, by applying a certain formula to them. I became a great writer because of this, so let me show you exactly how I did it. So here's how I taught myself how to write. Step 1, I'd break an essay down into main ideas. I would then mix up the main ideas and then organize them in a structure that I thought fit the best. I would then convert them into poetry, and then I would rewrite them into an essay. Now, you might be wondering, why poetry? Poetry was key. It helped me improve my writing. I learned from Cicero, or at least reading about Cicero, that poetry would never make you money, but it could make you a great speaker. It helped me make my ideas concise and focused. I could memorize easier too. And if I needed to have or know words that rhymed, I needed to know a lot of words. So it increased my vocabulary. Nowadays, hip hop has gone a step further. It's poetry, but it also provides an artistic expression of ideas while promoting working hard, rebelling against unjust authority. And there's some beautiful symmetry in my use of this art form to flush out the ideas of the Enlightenment, which in their prime were challenging the authoritarian structures of the medieval old world. It made me the perfect type of rebel. And all I needed was to have a fight to pick. And that shit would come real quick. Bars.